All right, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Flip the Script. I'm Dr. J. Joey here with Cameron, and what are we bringing to the house today, brother? What you want to talk about?
Let's talk about that hip, that pelvic tilt. Let's talk about that. You know, that's actually how we met. You know, when I came to you, I could barely play soccer anymore, and I'd been playing high-level soccer, and I mean, I was limping. It was so bad. After I was playing, they were getting pink and swollen, and they were just hot from all that.
And your symptoms was in the knee, actually, not even in the hip and the pelvis, which is where the actual problem was, right?
That's why I stayed there for a year and a half with those issues. I was playing in a game in Gulf Shores, and my high school coach just like took me out of the game. He's like, "What's wrong with you?" I was literally like hobbling around the field, and I was like, my knees hurt so bad, like it. And you know, I like to think I have a high pain tolerance, but I mean, it was terrible. And went to PT for it. When I say PT, like I did a lot of different sessions and exercises and stretches and all this stuff. And if the pain was at like an 8 before, it took it down to like a 7. I mean, that's it, like maybe a 6.
Right.
And then found you, got adjusted, and it was like I actually couldn't believe how quickly that it was like people weren't even going to believe, but it was immediately. It was literally immediately. I remember I literally still in my head have the picture in my head of the x-ray you were showing me, like the first time we met. And I remember talking, I was like, yeah, this is awesome.
And that's pelvic unleveling. And I mentioned this in my second book, Pain-Free Living. 80% of all low back issues start there. And a lot of times I also mentioned in the book what we call runner's knee, which is sort of what yours is. Now, it doesn't always happen to runners, but of course in soccer you're running, correct? And the pain is away from the actual cause, which for you wound up being this pelvic unleveling issue, which, again, I'm telling you, 30-something years of doing this now. And I write this also in my Pain-Free Living book. If you bring me 10 4-year-olds, lay them on my table, and I evaluate their leg lengths, 8 out of those 10 have already developed a short leg. Now, developed it because it's part of the alignment of the pelvis. And of course, well, how can that happen on a 4-year-old?
Yeah, why does that happen?
Right. Well, I mean, how does it not happen? One of the most common, another thing that I mentioned, is side sleeping without a pillow between the knees. Hey, I'm crossing my leg right now, right? That's what we do. We're taught to do that. So when you look at what's actually happening here, I'll give you an idea with the spine, and then we'll talk about your condition.
Gotcha.
So with the pelvic unleveling, what's happening is the two iliums join the sacrum right here, and it's kind of like a hinge joint. Now, way back in your grandmother's day, this was called a catch and you get along, okay? But basically what happens is these will shift out of alignment, and they're hinge joint much like a door. And I've found over the years, this is where all these low back issues tend to start, and including a condition like your knee issue, because the IT band attaches to this ilium in the front side. So when this comes out of alignment, you're going to get a tight IT band in your condition, and that's going to cause your kneecap that always moves out just a little bit, it's going to start to pull even more so. And that creates inflammation around your knee. And what told me this is probably what we were dealing with is that you couldn't pinpoint the pain exactly because it was somewhere around the knee. And of course, when you came in, the leg length on that side, but not always on the side of the short leg, but 80% of the time so. So you were short on that side, and that gave me the clue, we're probably looking at a pelvic alignment issue. So we corrected that. That took the pressure off of that IT band and allowed that patella not to track and cause that inflammation and that irritation. So sometimes this is a classic case of where your problem is away from your symptom. And this just goes to show you were, 18 or 19 then? Right?
Yeah, maybe 17.
Yeah. So with that, again, and if I have a situation where that occurs, I'm going to get rotation inside of the femur, and the tibia is also going to rotate inside. So now I have what's known as a valgus stress, or stress on the inside of the knee joint, right? You see that? Mm-hmm. Now think about this. Here you are as a young athlete. And let's just say, like we see out there today, so many parents are putting their kids through these high-dollar special coaching programs, okay? to try to get their kids at the next level. And a lot of people spend a lot of money for that. They don't know to check the child's leg length for instability, right? And a pelvic alignment problems. You're spending all that money for those special coaches, and you have a short leg syndrome that's causing a lot of stress on the knee that maybe is just mild to your child. And let's just say he's junior in high school, and a lot of colleges are looking at him, right? Prospect, or her, a prospect for a future, maybe college tuition to pay for it, and that's what you're hoping for. And then they're running around like this, and they make a quick move in the soccer field, or somebody bumps them in football on the outside of the knee, and they blow the knee out. And there goes all that investment off of something as simple as a instability of the knee due to a pelvic alignment. So why not have it checked? If you're going to put that time and that money in for a athlete, or any child for that matter, invest wisely in the stability of the pelvis.
Yeah, you remember the video we made with Logan and all
Right.
that. We can clip that in here for people to see.
That's a
And
great idea to
that's-
show before and after.
Yeah, that's the treatment. And when y'all see it, y'all are going to, I'll have clipped it in probably in the video, probably 10 seconds prior. You'll see it, and you're going to be like, that's it.
So today we're going to do a leg length check on 21-year-old patient with complaints of low back pain into the right leg and to the knee area. So I'm going to have you lay face down for me, Logan, if you would. All right. And the first thing we're looking for is what we call leg length instability, aka what we know as short leg syndrome. So, in this case, if we look here, we're going to look at the patient's legs, feet, measure the feet straight down, and you can see noticeably that the right foot is noticeably, the shoe there is shorter than it is on the left. And again, this is what we call the involved side, because his symptoms are on the right side of his lower body. 80% of the time I find this, not always. Sometimes it can be the opposite side, because it's typically the SI joint that's causing the issue. And if you would, give me just a second and I'll show you what that looks like. So what's actually causing this problem on Logan in the short leg is, if you think about, the femur is coming up and attaching right here in the obturator foramen of the right hip. So with his pelvis, what has actually happened here is it's dropped what we call backwards posterior and downwards inferior. And when that occurs, when that happens, we're going to wind up with a short leg on this side, because it's attached here and it is drawing it up. So if he's standing, and we know we have this right leg at this particular time shorter than the left, does it make sense that this is not going to hover above the ground? It's got to go to the ground. So when that happens, we're going to have a pelvis that's going to have to go and put the right foot on the ground. That's going to cause a tilt towards that particular side, the short leg side, the right side. Spine sitting on top of that, well, big gravity is going to do its thing, and that's going to tend to cause that spine to fall towards the short leg side. But we don't go through life like this, now do we? So the righting reflex in the brain is going to correct that, and that's where we can develop, as you'll read about in my book, a cause for scoliosis. So let's make the correction here and balance out this pelvis and get the legs the same length. Here we go. Before we make this correction, I'll show you again. This is a case of a short right leg or pelvic instability on the right side. If you look here, you'll see at the inside, I like to use the inside of the heel of the shoe, because you get a better idea without the wear and tear that occurs on the outside. So here we go. Here's the correction for this particular right SI joint problem. Lay on this side for me, Logan, if you would. And here, bring the patient to tension. Bring him over towards me. And here we go with the correction. Take your tension. Let's let your air out for me, Logan. And there it is. It dropped right in. Okay. Now, if you would, let's roll to the other side, and we're going to make the correction on the low back, which we have a short leg on the right, so the lumbar spine will tend to roll towards that low side, and I'm going to make that correction here just like that. That simple. Felt pretty good?
Yeah.
Excellent. Let's roll face down for me if you would. And now, if you will, let's look at the aftershock. Okay, now we're balanced. We know that we have corrected the structural short leg. Remember, this is not anatomical. He wasn't born with it. He didn't break a long bone along the way. So this was due to a pelvic alignment issue. So we have a functional short leg, and we just corrected that. So now we have balance, stability. How easy. Thank you very much. Until next time.
That is it. That doesn't make any sense. You're right. It's almost
but you
miraculous.
know what? It's like I write in the second book. It really makes common sense because it's a common sense approach, and it's beautiful when parents can come in and they can see that. Or if I had, like, for example, when Logan came in and you were there as well, and you were able to see the before and the after.
I mean, he literally looked like that.
Yes.
Like that.
Yes.
I mean, we do jiu-jitsu together, and he was talking about one knee. I said, stand up straight for a second. Because I knew I could see it off. And before it came out of my mouth, some other dude that didn't even know what he was looking for goes, dude, why is one shoulder so much higher than the other? And he's like, what are you talking about? Because like you said, you had told me the eyes are always going to stay level.
Yeah.
It was so dramatic that he thought he was doing it on purpose.
Right. And so that brings up another thing about this pelvic unleveling issue. And again, I write this, scoliosis. They start testing you for it in school, and basically it's just a simple, it's not an effective test. They have the child bend over. You remember that, right?
That.
Okay. I'm telling you, this is the best way to determine that, bar none. The thing about the scoliosis is that most of them are diagnosed as what we call idiopathic scoliosis, which basically means, we don't have a clue, right? And of course, the treatment for most of these young kids are wait and see if it progresses and gets worse. No, okay? I'm telling you, if you think about, again, the simplicity of this, you have a tailbone that the spine sits on top of, known as the sacrum. If I develop a short leg on one side, right, because the pelvis is dropped back slightly, the femur is attached here, this foot has got to go to the ground. That means that because it's structurally short right now, I can correct that and balance it out. But in the meantime, that foot's got to go to the ground. It doesn't hover above the ground. Now the spine sits on top of this like a vase on a coffee table. Whoop! So like you were just talking about, the righting reflex in the brain doesn't have us walking around, hovering, leaning towards one side. So when that is corrected there's your scoliosis. So correctable, idiopathic? I don't think so, right? Correct the pelvis, leg length discrepancy issue? Boom. Now, am I going to reverse that scoliosis? Sadly, no, I'm not. But can I prevent the progression of it? In my clinical experience over my years, absolutely. And that's beautiful. It's a lot better than Harrington rods that they put in there now surgically, or the kid has to run around with a brace that they wear that they absolutely hate for 2 or 3 years, waiting for them to turn 18 when they supposedly stop their growth, right?
Yeah, whenever I see someone wearing a back brace, I'm like, what's going on here?
Yeah,
you know
right?
What I mean?
And of course, that's not fashionable. And does it really work? No.
Right.
Fix the pelvis is easy. It's easy. Be done with it, right? Balance it out. And sadly, a lot of times with this, you may feel initially a symptom. Sometimes you honestly don't. There may be a little discomfort to one side of the low back or the other. But a lot of my patients, by the time they actually injure themselves, they could be running around like that for years. And I call it standing on a ladder with 3 legs, right? I mean, you're okay 1 minute, you shift us a little bit, you're on the ground. And that's sort of the way that it can be. And then again, we just talked about how that pelvis drops towards the low side. And then the correction in the righting reflex is going to open up those disc joint spaces. And of course, when you open that up on one side, the nucleus of that disc is going to want to go towards that area of least resistance. And there's your bulge, right? Or possibly even worse, a herniation. And then the surgeon comes in, ooh, he salivates, he gets to go in there and take that out. But why did that thing want to escape that pressure in the first place? So again, is that not really just a symptom? Fix the underlying cause so you don't have that domino effect of surgery number 2, number 3. Again, I don't know. Common sense, you tell me.
Right? Yeah. Okay. I was doing a heavy squat workout with my gym partner, and I kept noticing that his squat form, amazing. Did CrossFit for years.
Yeah.
His literally poster child for the perfect squat form. And I noticed that his right leg was always a little bit farther back. And when I say a little bit, I mean naked eye wouldn't notice it.
Uh-huh.
But
sometimes slightly turned out. Right.
Yeah, so I'm just checking a little bit. And he also said, I can't remember which knee was hurting. And I was like, dude, you got a little bit of a hip imbalance. I checked him at his house. I was like, lay here, checked it. And I said,
you know how to do it.
Yeah, I said, you have to go get an appointment. Like, he's like, I think I'm just going to ease up on the squats for a bit. And so he just hasn't squatted since. And I'm like, dude, it is so easy.
Yeah.
Because I remember 2 years ago, I hadn't seen you in a little bit. And this is when you were changing offices. And I was going up and down a ladder. And that left knee was just getting me. And I came and saw you, and you're like, yeah, you're out.
Yeah.
You're out. You got that short leg pretty bad. And I was
There's
like,
your sign.
Yeah. But here's a good talk about how the human body can adapt. So, I mean, it's so good at adapting. I mean, that's what muscle growth is. That's what all these things are. And it's crazy how even when there's something bad, your body adapts to it. So, like, you get out of alignment, but your body adjusts to it so that once you get it realigned, you have to kind of retrain it to stay aligned by getting multiple.
Well, yeah. So for me, example, that's how I became a chiropractor. I was continuously injuring my back over a period of about a year when I was in college. And again, like you were talking about, was those closed chain, both feet on the ground type of exercises where squatting, leg presses, or something like that. I was torquing that low back all the time, right? So by the time I finally got to the chiropractor, and it took about half a dozen visits for him to get me pain-free, what people have to understand is that I probably had this condition for 10 years or more. So, think about the structure. It has balanced muscles and tendons and ligaments on both sides of the body. So if I change that structure, you're going to have to change the viscosity of these muscles, their tone. So he can make the alignment, and I correct it, and I'm corrected. But that muscle memory is going to go, hey, this is beautiful, but this is where I've been for 10, 20 years. So the earlier I can get a hold of a patient with that problem, the better the prognosis in the long run. Now, if somebody comes to me in their 30s or 40s, yeah, we'll get them out of that pain, but to think that they're going to hold that alignment for ever? Pain-free, yes, but that alignment held? Probably not, because that muscle memory is going to change back to that. And you can't simply change some of these large muscles like the psoas, hip flexor muscles, just by stretching them for 2 or 3 minutes.
They're so
right?
deep.
That's right.
It's not like
deep,
it's just
and it's
sitting here
not
easy
happening. The muscle memory is going to go back there. Sadly, I'm short-left. That's the way I was when I was first diagnosed, and today that's when I go out on that left lower side there, call it the SI joint area, and when that gets tweaked, then I know that I'm out. Sometimes I'm out long before I get my tweak, right? It's not until I perform something like a lift. So the same thing, it doesn't have to be the gym. It can be lifting your dog. It can be picking up a cooler.
Tell me about Dad. After we came over here like a month ago, carrying the box, and it was way out here.
Got it away from the body.
Oh, yeah. Do we have that visual? Remember that one where however many pounds here is this much out here?
Well, you take it away from the body and you basically multiply that weight times about 30%. So let's say if you have 50 pounds and you're lifting it close to the body, you take it away from the body, you're looking at about 1,500 pounds in the low back. And that's what we don't think about when we're lifting, right? Somebody goes in the gym, they think about it. You see somebody over lifting heavy weight, 200, 400, 500 pounds. They know it's heavy. They're keeping it really close to the body.
It's scraping.
All right, they don't get it away from the body, and so we don't always think about that when we're lifting at home, right? We don't necessarily injure something when we're picking it up, but what about when we're going and putting it up somewhere and we rotate the back and we lift away from us, or we're putting a child in a car seat, right, away from the body. Now you've increased the stress on that low back by 30 times.
The kid in the
But
car
it's the
seat,
daily,
yeah.
it's our daily move, right? So keep a close, I call it a close lever arm. I mentioned that in the book. Keep a close lever arm. Keep the weight close to the body, all right? That's where you're the most stable. And when we're lifting at the gym or we're exercising, we know it's going to be heavy. And so we prepare ourselves for it. But like your dad, for example, sometimes we don't think about that when we're just picking up a 20-pound cooler, right? And then we get it away from our body, and that 20-pound cooler suddenly became a 600-pound load on our low back. Boom, I'm out, especially if you have a pelvic unleveling issue, right? Now you've magnified that likelihood of the injury to the low back. And so again, like I said, what doesn't throw the pelvis out? Crossing your legs when you sit, driving now without a clutch. Everybody's over on one side, right? And I find this with people who drive for, in sales for a living. I always find that short right leg on most all of them because that's what they've been doing for such a long period of time. And the worst thing, like I mentioned again, in pain-free living, what do you do more than anything else in your day if you're lucky? 1/3 of your life spent in bed, right? Sleeping. So if you're compromising your posture then, what do you think is going to happen, right? So we sleep without a pillow between our knees if we're a side sleeper, and so many people are. Then you're throwing that pelvis out while you sleep. Then you get up in the morning or later in the day and you lift something and go, I threw my back out at here or there. No, you didn't. You threw your back out sleeping.
The common phrase is, my neck, I slept weird. You know what I mean?
That's common too. When I come in and people say, I didn't do anything, doc. I just woke up with this. Yes, okay, that tells me everything, really. Yeah. And that's why I said sometime in history, I can tell you which side you slept on, which leg you're crossing, right? If that person's sleeping on the side and that pillow's not adequately thick enough, especially large guys, then they're not going to tilt the head. They're going to roll the shoulder. Well, if I walk around like this right here for 6 hours a day, you're going to go, well, there's your problem.
You
right?
need to show the camera.
Okay.
Right? Show the camera what you've said.
If I'm walking around and I'm like this right here, lactic acid building out because when I'm sleeping on this side, the pillow's not thick enough. I'm not doing this. I'm just simply rolling that.
I remember you were over at the house for dinner and you were like, you basically showed what it would look like if we were standing up but sleeping on our side. It was like right here, and you're like, tell me that doesn't hurt.
I mean, hold that for an hour if you can, luckily. You're like, no way, I'm not doing that, right? But you're laying on your side, and there you are asleep, and you're in a compromised position for, like I said, if you're lucky, you get 6-8 hours, right? Mm-hmm. So, and that's why people will come in and say, doc, I didn't do anything. And, of course, that pain's from the shoulder blade up into the back of the head, and sometimes the headache's coming around, the front to the sinuses and to the eyes, and it's just a classic. That's what we do. Again, it's common sense, people. That's what it's all about. So, posture and gravity's working against us even when we're what I call gravity neutral, laying on our sides, right? Or laying on our back even. Yeah.
So when you were saying you're explaining kind of the anatomy behind it, and you mentioned the IT band had gotten tight and stuff, I have gotten to know my body so well from just playing sports, working out, all this different stuff, being adjusted so many times and all this. I know my own symptoms for when I need to get adjusted. Usually before my knee ever starts to hurt. It's always my left knee, but before the left knee even starts to hurt, I feel tingling and tightness in my right IT band.
Yes.
And then the left knee starts to hurt. And so that's how I know. But what are some other symptoms, maybe early onset symptoms? I know we talked about some of that, but some later on symptoms that someone might have. All of them,
Well, but like I said earlier, you're talking about a hinge joint here. Literally, think of it almost like a door hinge. So this joint glides. The sacrum glides on the ilium, the hip. So a lot of times they might have difficulty getting up out of the chairs where they notice it, right? There's a little catch. And they also might have a difficulty like actually standing up. So I'll tell my patients sometimes with this condition, they tend to give into it and lean slightly forward when they get up out of a chair and they walk or get up out of the car, right? So I tell them, I say, when you get up, take a second, get up, right? Which means squeeze your butt cheeks, hold them, boom, get up, and then go. Because if not, we kind of give into it and we look like the 70-year-old. Sorry, there's a lot of 70-year-olds that walk a lot better than this, so don't let me go there. But it looks like you're hunched forward slightly, and you don't realize you're giving into it. That, a little, like you were mentioning earlier, any type of kind of muscle reaction on one side or the other of the pelvis. I get this a lot too with patients. So, doc, do you think it's a muscle? Well, Yeah, but there's a lot more to it than just that. How did it get to that? You're noticing it because it's in the muscle, for example, right? But where the sensation came from, it had to come from the nerve, so we know we have a nerve involvement there too. And if we think about it, where is that nerve likely to be irritated at? And of course, that's going to be at the joint. So that's why we have to go upstream and correct that problem, because these things are all just symptoms, and those are the symptoms that you're looking for, right? So, and fortunately for a lot of people, or unfortunately, if you rest it, it'll go away in a day, right? As you get older, it might take 2 days. Next thing you know, it may take 3 days. And then eventually, it doesn't anymore, right? And by now, we've got a lot of layers of this onion to reverse.
And that's what I was telling you.
Or if you're really, really, really unfortunate, it gets into the disc, and we start having disc issues, right? So if you can.
That's why I urge people, like, just go now. Okay, do not wait. If you wait, it is literally going to get worse, especially all my buddies are really active.
Dude.
Everyone I'm coming in contact with, super active. I mean, he was loading up 365, and he was hitting it for 5 reps, and I was like, dude, that's a lot of stress on that. You know, it's usually evenly distributed, so half of whatever you're squatting. I was like, but that's not what's happening right now. You're getting a lot of it on one leg, dude. I don't know if it's what percent, but
I've had a lot of people over the 30 years that will literally have to quit performing certain exercises for 10 years or more until they come in and they get the pelvis level and they're back to doing them again, but they could not do them for that long a period of time for something really, I don't want to oversimplify it, but
to the person
pretty amazing. Yeah.
To the person, it is super simple. They don't even have to understand it. I mean, when they watch the video in here, they're going to be like, what is going on? And like I said, it's that simple. I mean,
that's cool.
Logan couldn't believe it. Afterwards, he was like, that's it? I was like, yeah, because I had been telling him.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you'll hear the pops in the video. I mean, you'll see what he was out by, 2 inches or inch and a half, whatever he was out by.
Yeah.
And then the pop, I mean, good grief. A lot of chiropractors, when they do adjustments on video on camera, they'll take a little mic and clip it on the lower back, on the waistband, so you can hear the pops. We didn't do any of that, guys. You can check. You can look. There's no...
For some reason, people want to hear that pop, and yet it causes them to go, ah!
Yeah, we didn't do any of that,
to me.
and it's loud. It is very
And that's
loud.
just simply decapitation of that joint, and it's just gas escaping out. It's like when you crack your own knuckle, right? It's sort of, that's what you got. But some people don't like that, so we have other techniques for those who don't like the pop.
What about the myth? I used to hear this all the time. Don't pop your knuckles; it'll give you arthritis.
Yeah. Well, I say it this way: you want to keep arthritis out of a joint, keep a joint in motion. Now, your grandmother didn't like that because it was annoying, right? So, don't pop your knuckles. But of course, you don't want to do anything so devastating or dramatic or hard that you actually cause an injury to the articulating capsule, right? But just gently. And actually, these joints in the fingers, they move in 8 different directions. Just pop them gently, keep them moving. Because I get that all the time. I have patients come in, with the thumb. Doc, I was diagnosed with arthritis. Well, yeah, that makes sense to me. Yeah, because you got arthritis. The arth came from an articulating joint, right? 2 bones together. And the itis came from inflammation. So, yeah, you got arthritis in that thumb. But you don't have to live with it. All right? So let me have that thing. Let me adjust it, realign it. Boom, you're done. Okay? Same thing with the tendonitis in the elbow. We'll do an elbow adjustment one day and show how easy that is. And of course, the other treatment is cortisone shot in the elbow. Well, that's for the inflammation. But why is the thing inflamed? Well, probably an alignment issue in the bones that make up the elbow. And I always say, and we'll do this later on, you got to look away from that elbow just like we did with your knee. Because usually it's down in the wrist is where the real problem is with the alignment, and so we correct both of those. Now, sadly, not all chiropractors do that, or osteopaths, so find you one who is experienced with that and adds that into their protocol. So, and again, just fix the cause and keep on keeping on, right? Life is motion, got to keep it moving. That's the same thing with the pelvis. So the pelvic unleveling, to get your kids tested early for an unlevel pelvis, whether that's with an chiropractor, an osteopath, a PT, and then keep your child in line. Let them grow up correctly. You got it. So, man, we could go on and on. This was one of those things I'm passionate for, right? So, Cameron, good stuff. And as always, everyone, thanks for taking the time to hear us out. And don't hesitate to opine on the website. And again, thank you for spending some time with us today. And until next time, have yourself a great day so you're not missing one, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. And also, if y'all have any questions, if they have any questions, our website, whenever we get that up, but also Flip the Script podcast at outlook.com. I will put that in a link and stuff. If you have questions that you want addressed on the podcast live, we'll do that. Or if you just want a response, just kind of say what you would prefer. We'll talk about it on the podcast, or we will just send you an email back.
Yes. Or you can also www.drjoeyjones.com. Send me if you want to join with your email. Do that, and you can. We'll have special newsletters coming out from time to time, and of course you're always welcome to ask questions. And again, join us, send us questions, and we'll be more than happy to go over them with you. Awesome. All right, let's do this again soon.